start on the AB instrumental.
La Sierra Morena, cielito lindo, vienen bajando un par de ojitos negros, cielito lindo de contrabando. De la Sierra Morena, cielito lindo, vienen bajando un par de ojitos negros, cielito lindo de contrabando. Ay, 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 canta y no llores, porque cantando se alegran, cielito lindo, los corazones. Ay, 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 canta, no llores, porque cantando se alegran, cielito lindo, los corazones.
Thank you. That music was beautiful. Eric Waters is our guitarist and David Mann on the piano. Thank you so much. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Arlington. We are a people of many backgrounds, sexual orientations, races, genders, disabilities, and abilities, both seen and unseen. At UUCA, we encourage people to come for community, find inspiration, and live with purpose together. My name is Jim Finley, and I'm a grateful member of the Board of Trustees. Today is Sunday, September 15th, and whether this is your first time worshiping with us or your regular Sunday routine, we're glad you're here. Today our service is celebrated by Reverend Amanda Poppy and Reverend CTC, and we will explore the themes of basically RE and religious education. We've got a great setup in the back. We here at UUCA are a highly active and engaged community, so I encourage each of you to go to our newsletter for all the latest news and activities of our church. Please visit the church calendar on our website to learn about everything we're doing. Today I'd like to highlight the beginning of Hispanic Heritage Month, which this year carries this theme, Pioneers of Change, Shaping the Future Together. The day of September 15th is significant because it is the anniversary of independence for many Latin American countries, including Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, and Nicaragua. In addition, Mexico and Chile celebrate their Independence Days on September 16 and 18, respectively. UUCA especially honors the many Latinx Unitarian Universalists who are part of our tradition's history and future. Lastly, I'd like to encourage each of you to come to our bustling faith fair in the back during coffee hour afterward to meet our many program leaders. They can help answer questions and help with registration for our different groups coming up this fall and later into the church year. Thank you and welcome to UUCA.
Jim, thank you so much for that welcome, and thank you for the music that began us this morning, and thank you for being here. I am Reverend Amanda Poppy. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm privileged to serve as senior minister here at UUCA. And I am grateful to be with you for worship this morning, joined by my colleague, Reverend Carol Thomas Sissel, who is the Minister for Social Justice and Community Development, and by David Mann, our Director of Music, and as you've heard, our guest musician, Eric Waters. I also want to, oh, yay. Eventually, David. David is still relatively new, but honestly, he started in August. Like, I think soon we're still applauding every time we say David's name. That's great. Keep it up. And I'm so grateful for our AV folks in the back. Cameron and Art are on AV today, for our many volunteers who create Sunday morning, for everybody who is creating, I think bustling is the right word, for that faith fair that's back there in between and after services. So I hope you'll check that out. And for all of you, because it is every single one of us, from the smallest to the longest time member, who creates this moment here on Sunday morning, which is different every week because we are different every week. So I invite you this morning, if you are watching online, be sure to say hello in the comments so that you can know that you are watching together, although you are not together in person. And if you are here, please say hello to someone near you. Learn what it is that makes this particular Sunday morning just exactly what it is. Good morning, friends. Good morning, by which I mean find your seats. Oh, they're not listening. They are not listening to me today.
They're not.
Good
you need
morning.
a school marm bell.
Good morning. I need like a chime.
Like a bell.
Ding,
like
ding,
a cowbell.
Ding. Good morning, everyone. It is hard to be anything but delighted by extra connection and conversation, and so I am grateful for that, and hope that you will keep it up during Faith Fair and grab some coffee and just have a chance to keep that connection going. Our call to worship this morning comes from Unitarian Universalist minister Gretchen Haley, who serves the Foothills Unitarian Universalist Church in Fort Collins, Colorado. I particularly love this call to worship, which I find funny and disarming, and I have been waiting for the right service to share it with all of you. So I invite you into a call to worship titled, God Runs Late to Church. Today, God is running late, trying to find their seat, scanning the room for someone they know or someone they don't. God's feeling evangelical, but not in a judgy way, mysterious, but not manipulative, God can't stop thinking about the James Webb Telescope and the possibility that time is not linear, which God might have guessed from the never-ending urgency of some upcoming election and the likelihood that sometime next week Halloween candy will show up in the grocery store. God is tired of grief and white supremacy and the warming of the oceans. Not to mention, they usually come to the later service and it's hot. Why hasn't the climate-friendly air conditioning been installed yet, God wonders. And of course, we're all like, no kidding, God, can't you do something about that? But God's hearing aid batteries ran out and they haven't had time to order more, or that's what they say when asked and can hear the question, but really, that last emergency room visit maxed their credit cards and their partner's been working DoorDash for extra cash, but it's not enough. And really, God just wants to be present. Stop worrying about everything. Sing, breathe, laugh. We got you, God, we say. We'll settle in, and we'll be present, and we'll sing. We'll tell stories and breathe deep. We'll remember ourselves and offer whole galaxies of gratitude for all this beauty, for still blooming salvia and full apple trees, for zucchini bread and the U.S. women's soccer team, for protest letters and entire villages of people saying, "You are safe here, God. Your creation is not yet done creating you." Come, let us worship together.
Every Sunday morning, we light a candle of compassion. We send our thoughts, our energy, and our strength to those who are carrying seen and unseen burdens. Before I kindle the flame this morning, I'm going to tell you a short story. Last Thursday, I was driving from Walter Reed Army Medical Center to work here in Arlington, and on the way, my car broke down. So if you're in DC and your car broke down, you know there's no lanes on the side where you can pull over. So there I am in the middle of the road, broken down. And I immediately thought of all the things this was going to cause problems for. I wouldn't get to the grocery store. I was going to be late for 2 meetings. I didn't know how I was going to get to church on Sunday because I knew the car was going to have to be taken away. And I was fuming. So I called my daughter, and she immediately said to me, "Mom, you got champagne problems. It's a car." I share that with you because I believe many of us have champagne problems, but we light the candle of compassion for those who are homeless, for those who are hungry, for those who are dealing with the atrocities of war, who are living with the fallout from gun violence. We light this candle of compassion to send our strength and energy out to them because their problems are not champagne problems. And now let's light our chalice along with our sister, sibling, brother congregations around the globe. We gather together as a community of memory and hope to celebrate life and the infinite possibilities for love. Please join me. We light this chalice as a symbol of the light within every human heart. May our individual sparks meet and merge, bringing both light and warmth to the world.
I invite you now to rise in body or in spirit and join in singing our opening hymn, number 51 in your gray hymnal. We are going to sing verses 1 and 4. 1, 4.
Lady of the seasons, laughter in the summers won't be near when the winter and hearts to end oppression, writing history's fairer page. Hold us in your steady mercy, Lady of the turning age.
I would like to invite any smaller, younger people who would like to chat with me. Come right on up, walking boots or not. Thanks so much. I'm hoping we can just have a conversation today. Very nice tiara, love it. Because the grown-ups today are going to be talking about God, which is a big topic. Hi, I really enjoy the age diversity on the chancel today. Thanks for coming. And a word that means a lot of different things to a lot of different people, the idea of God. Sometimes it means things like the song we just sang, a goddess or a lady that moves through the year and helps us to understand the seasons and the turning of the earth and the cycles of the earth. And for some people, it means a figure that keeps us safe and that connects with us. And for some people, it means just nature. Some of the ancestors of this congregation, Unitarians and Universalists from a long time ago, they thought that God meant love, basically. And I find myself much less interested in what people believe about God and more how they feel. So I am wondering if you can help us think about what it feels like to experience love. So take just a second to think about the people in your life that love you. Maybe parents or caregivers, maybe grandparents, maybe your siblings love you. And I am wondering if any of you can tell me what it feels like when someone does something to show you that they love you. Could be a friend or a cousin. Does anyone have an example of someone showing you that they love you? I'll give you an example. Oh, do you? Thanks. Thanks so much. Yeah. Your brother? Your brother makes you food, and that shows that he loves you. I love that so much. What does it feel like when he makes something special just for you? Cared for and happy. Beautiful, a sermon all in itself. Yes, cared for and happy when someone shows love for us by making something they know we'll love or special for us. Thank you so much. Does anyone else have an example of someone? Oh my goodness, great, thanks. Yes?
My brother shows me love, this little guy, when he always likes to play with me. Is that right? Yeah.
So that was my brother shows me love, and it's this little guy. I just thought that was cute. Because he likes to play with you. And how does that make you feel, Gaston?
It makes me feel like special because I always love playing with him, and yeah.
Makes you feel special. Yeah, I love that. I love that. Yes.
My mom, she makes me breakfast when I'm asleep. When I wake up, I can have breakfast.
Your mother makes you breakfast while you're sleeping, and so when you wake up, breakfast is ready. That's amazing. How does it make you feel? Not hungry. That's great. I like that too, actually, right? Yes, sometimes being loved means we feel not hungry. We feel like we're full and taken care of. Yeah, you want to add one?
My brother shows me love by when I first sleep and or after I come home, he'll give me a hug and
When you come home after school and you haven't seen your brother for a while, he gives you a hug, and that makes you feel loved too. Same. Oh, these are really great examples of feeling cared for, like someone's really thinking of us specially, like we're full, we're not hungry, like we're special. Does your brother have something to add? Yeah.
He wants to say he gives me hugs.
You give hugs. That's such a good way to show love. Yes, I love that. So all of those ways that we feel love, we can also give love to each other. And so our ancestors in this congregation would say that that's kind of what it feels like to feel the divine or to feel God with us. We feel that we are special or that we are seen. Rev CTC said that at 9:15. We feel like we're really seen for who we are. We feel like we're taken care of. We feel like we're wrapped up in love. So I hope that you are going to feel that today, maybe from someone who loves you, and that you get to share that with someone that you love as well sometime today. You feel that your brother loves you? Yeah, I think that's true. Before we send our kiddos to their classes, we would like to bless their RE teachers, their religious education teachers. And so Rev CTC is going to come and help me do that. And I wonder, would you all like to stay there? Maybe you can look out at your teachers as they're going to participate and be blessed for their work here at UUCA. This teacher dedication was inspired by and adapted from words by Reverend Barbara Wells Tenhove. We are all part of one community, children and adults, members and friends. Together, we stand at the beginning of a new church year, a year when we will laugh, learn, grow, and be enriched by our time together.
As we move into this year, let's take a moment. Let's dedicate and acknowledge those among us who have chosen to take on the responsibility of teaching our children. Now I invite all of those here who have made this commitment to please rise, embody your spirit, so we can acknowledge you.
So teachers, will you
teachers.
stand?
That's nice. Yep.
As these folks stand, I invite you to remember that several of our teachers are already downstairs in classrooms and in the nursery doing the work to which we dedicate them. So send your dedication vibes down through the cement
concrete.
floor,
Yes.
the concrete floor,
Yep.
to the teachers who are preparing the classrooms right now.
Okay. To our teachers, let me say this. You've committed yourselves to nurturing the spirits of this congregation's youngest members. Do you promise now, before them and the entire congregation, to do your best to honor them, to teach them, to nurture their religious growth as Unitarian Universalists? If so, say we will.
Okay, so now the children and young people of our congregation,
That's you guys.
That's you all.
That's you guys.
do
Listen up.
you promise to honor and respect your teachers with your hearts and minds? If so, say we do.
We do.
Wait,
Excellent.
what was that? Okay, great.
And lastly, but not finally, do you, the members and the friends of UUCA, promise your support to these teachers and young people, knowing that religion cannot be taught only in a classroom, but must also be encouraged in the home and beyond? If so, say we do.
We do. So I invite the teachers and our students to go forward and take up this good work, have fun, grow, learn together, and let us sing them on their way. The words are in your order of service.
Peace to you on your way. May you grow in love each day, meeting new friends and opening your mind to the wonders of the world you will find, to the wonders of the world you will find.
I am so grateful to hear the descriptions of what love feels like. Safe and full, not hungry anymore, cared for and special. as we go deeper into our service this morning, a service in which we explore different understandings of the divine, I want to invite you to open yourself up to that experience of love as we center down into silence. Almost every religious tradition has some practice that begins in silence, that invites us to be quiet and to listen. And many of them hold that practice in community, as we do here at UUCA. And so I want to invite you into a moment or two of quiet, to know that quiet will not be absolute, because we will be living and breathing and moving within it. As we take a breath, let us open our hearts to listen. In the quiet, we feel more deeply the connections between us, the spirit of life that moves among us.
Fuente d'amor, ven hacia mí, y al corazón cántale tu compasión. Sopla volar, sube en la mar, hasta moldear la justicia de la vida. Arraigame, libérame, fuente d'amor, ven a mí, ven a mí. Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea. Move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Ours is a community that gives. We share our time, our talent, and our treasure with each other, with this church, and with the Arlington community. One of the things we do is give our offering away. Share the Plate sees 70% of the offering goes out into the community to an organization whose values mirror ours. In the month of September, we are giving 70% of every Sunday's offering to Echo Action Arlington. Now, I could try to explain to you exactly what they do, but I'm lucky enough that today I have Kara Simon with me from Echo Action Arlington. She's going to do a much better job. Will you please come up, Kara? Thank you for being with us, and thank you for sharing.
Thank you, and good morning. My name is Kara Simon, pronouns are she, her, and I am the program manager at EcoAction Arlington. So EcoAction Arlington educates, advocates, and acts for a sustainable future here in Arlington. And some of the ways we do that are through environmental justice, through the programs that we provide. Those programs look like different stream cleanups, trash pickups along the roadside and along 4 Mile Run through the Potomac River. We also have a tree canopy program, which is our tree equity program. And this focuses specifically in 13 different neighborhoods. We were fortunate enough this year to be able to expand into 3 new neighborhoods through Arlington County through our equity program. And those new neighborhoods are Barcroft, Glen Carlin, and Arlington Mill. Private property owners within those 13 equity neighborhoods can apply to receive free trees and shrubs. So that's one way that we are advocating and providing action for environmental justice. Another program that we provide is called Energy Masters, and this is a 25-hour volunteer training where volunteers through Arlington and Alexandria can sign up for this training and learn how to make homes become more energy efficient. So it's hands-on training, and then we take these volunteers and take them into affordable housing units here in Arlington and also parts of Alexandria as well. We're teaching residents how to be more energy efficient and teaching volunteers to help their homes become more energy efficient as well. I do have a table in the back. I'm here with my colleague Keisha, who is the outreach manager for our tree canopy program. So please come say hi at the end of service. Thank you.
Thank you, Kara. Will the ushers please collect an offering at this time? Ushers, please bring the offering forward. So I've said to you many, many times that one of the blessings we have here is music. We have really good music, guys. I am grateful that we have you all playing this morning. Thank you for this offering. Let's bless the money together. We bless and receive these gifts, opening our hearts to true generosity. Please join me. Let us be grateful when we give, be it time, talent, or treasure. Let us be grateful for our needs and the experience of vulnerability. Let us be grateful for those who share their gifts to nurture this congregation. Thank you, ladies. Today's reading that Rev. Amanda chose is called That Which Holds All. It was written by Nancy Schaefer. I ask you all to think for a moment and breathe a little bit as we move into worship. I want you to picture in your mind's eye a woman standing in front of a crowd or an audience, or perhaps blessing the meal at an interfaith gathering, but who has to bring the words of the divine to a mixed group of people. Nancy writes, because she wanted everyone to feel included in her prayer, she said right at the beginning several names for the holy. Spirit, she said, Holy One, Mystery, God. But then thinking these weren't enough, they weren't enough ways of addressing that which cannot be fully addressed, she added particularities. Spirit of life, Spirit of love, Ancient Holy One, mystery we will not ever fully know, gracious God, and then also Spirit of this earth, God of Sarah, and thou. And then, tongue loosened, she fell to naming superlatives as well. Most creative one, greatest source, closest hope. Even though superlatives for the sacred seemed to be probably redundant, she couldn't stop. One who made the stars, she said. Although she knew technically a number of those present didn't believe the stars had been made by anyone or thing, but just happened. One who is an entire ocean of compassion, she said, and no one laughed. That which has been present since before the beginning, she said, and the room went silent. Then, although she hadn't imagined it this way, others began to offer names. Peace, said one. One my mother knew, said another. Ancestor, said a third. Wind, rain, breath, said one near the back of the room. Refuge, that which holds all. A child's voice said water. Someone said kun yin. Then womb, witness, great kindness, great eagle, eternal stillness. And then there wasn't any need to say the things she thought would be important to say, and everyone sat hushed. Until someone said, Amen.
That reading, that poem, or maybe it's a prayer, it's hard to tell what is what sometimes, has been a favorite of mine for a long time. In fact, it was one of the poems and readings that I had clipped out and stuck to my bulletin board. I think it may still be on my bulletin board or in a drawer ready to go up there. I put it on my bulletin board during my first couple of years of seminary. Seminary had a lot of learning, of course. Some of it was kind of historical and practical, so learning about the history of early Christianity, for instance, or the various Protestant movements from the Radical Reformation forward, or learning some of the practical things of church administration and leadership studies. But then there was a lot of seminary that was what I might call the learning of self-definition or self-understanding, trying to come to answers about what it was that I believed. Now, I went to a Methodist seminary. It wasn't all Methodist students, but it was more than half Methodist students and kind of a smattering of other generally progressive Christian traditions. And then a little group of Unitarian Universalists, we would get together at lunch and do some translation, make sure we were keeping up. I have a great fondness for Methodists because of all of my colleagues within the Methodist Seminary. I particularly have increased that fondness for the United Methodist Church in the last couple of years, as they have done the hard work of discernment and ultimately voting for the full inclusion of queer people, including queer clergy, in their denomination. So I have a lot of just connection with Methodism and with the forms of worship, with their beautiful communion service and open table, open to all. But the thing about Methodists is they're called Methodists because they like method. I mean, like, that's literally historically true. It's one of the things I learned in those history classes. Because they like a particular order of things, they have a book called a Book of Discipline that gives answers. And so what I found in those early years of seminary, where we were all doing our thinking and self-defining, and some might say navel-gazing, trying to determine what it was that we believed, was that my Methodist colleagues, when they were asked questions about the nature of the holy or about who or what God is, had actual answers to give. Now, I was raised Unitarian Universalist. It had not occurred to me that there could be actual answers to those questions. I was raised instead primarily with the questions and something like, good luck. In fact, Unitarian Universalism, a tradition that holds a great amount of openness, can also sometimes close us off to those questions or to the answers. I was raised Unitarian Universalist in Albany, New York, in kind of the late 80s and 90s, in what was then a strongly humanist congregation. And I come from a strongly humanist family as well. And so honestly, it was in coming of age class in 8th grade when I had my very first experience of talking to my minister at that congregation and having her say that she thought it was possible, maybe, that there was something beyond just us. I was not aware that Unitarian Universalists could think that. I was shocked, in fact. Couldn't believe the minister would just go right out and say it like that. But it began a lifelong search of wondering what the answers to those questions might be. Now, a quick history reminder. Unitarian Universalism, which is the movement that we know today and that came together in 1961 as the merger of two different traditions, Unitarianism and Universalism, both of them rooted within historic Christianity and themselves understanding themselves to be Christian traditions, but continuing to evolve and change over the 19th and 20th and into the 21st centuries. As those of you who have been around a while know, I often refer to Unitarian Universalism as a Protestant tradition that kept protesting until it protested its way out of Protestantism, right? Kept going, and now we have what is essentially a pluralistic religious movement that has space for atheists and theists, for Christians and Hindus and Jews and Muslims, all within our tent and understanding, our gathered covenant and community as Unitarian Universalists. We are a tradition that has prioritized evolution, that has prioritized change and questions and wondering, and a tradition that has prioritized values articulation and justice work and human experience, which sometimes does leave us wondering, as little Amanda did those years ago, what exactly are we supposed to think about God? So there I was in seminary, not quite so little as I was in 8th grade, but some years ago still. And my Methodist colleagues and my Episcopal colleagues and my Lutheran colleagues seemed to have answers to give to these big questions being posed. And I had poetry that I was cutting out of newspapers and magazines and printing off on my printer, putting them on my bulletin board in the hopes that one of them would tell me something that felt true. Something that answered the questions about the what or the who or the did I believe and was it particularly like that and how does it fit in to my systematic theology. Around that time, I was attending then All Souls DC, and I went to a sermon there that I remember still. I only remember a couple of sermons over my many, many years of listening to sermons, which I think gives me a good dose of humility for whatever it is that I say on Sunday mornings. And most of the time, I don't remember exactly what the sermon was, but I remember how it made me feel. This sermon was about aspects of the divine. And instead of offering a list of what God was and how to think about it or how even other people had thought about it, instead the sermon invited us to consider how God might feel, what it might feel like to experience the sacred. I remember a couple of metaphors. I couldn't even tell you now if those were actually the metaphors in that sermon or if they're just metaphors I've come up with that have been meaningful since, but we'll pretend. I remember the metaphor of God as a raft, holding us up in the stormy sea of life, cradling us in safety. I remember the metaphor of God like a blanket, wrapping around us so that we feel cozy and warm and held. Or the metaphor of God as a cape, kind of flowing out around us, every one of us full of strength and sure of the divine spark within each of us, of every person's sacred worth. What shifted for me in that sermon was an understanding of God, of the divine, not as something definable, but as something we feel. And it took me back to a class I had taken somewhere in between 8th grade and seminary, a sociology of religion class. Now, in that class, of course, we studied how religion emerged for different peoples all around the world, how fascinating it was that all the way on one side of the world to another, there might be relatively similar practices or similar articulations of what exactly God was. We studied all that good stuff that one might in sociology, but what I remember most about that class was the professor talking about his understanding, his belief about how religion emerged. I had come to the class kind of thinking about religion and the belief in God coming from a desire to explain supernatural events, like the 4th grade version of studying about Roman gods and goddesses, right? People came up with gods and goddesses and stories to explain the world around them. But this sociology of religion professor offered something different. He described the early humans, prehistoric catalog, early humans gathering together, just at the beginning, perhaps, of language and of community. People coming together, maybe especially around moments of transition, of grief or joy, or transition in the world and the seasons around us when the sun shifts or the moon arrives in a different way. He described people gathering in small groups and noticing who was there and feeling as though in that gathering there was something more there too. Something that emerged beyond the people in the space and calling that feeling God. And then, of course, as humanity continued and became yet more and more complicated, that feeling was ascribed to rocks or skies or to a figure that walks and talks with us. All the different ways that people across the world have understood the divine. But at the heart, this professor taught, at the heart was the same impulse, the same feeling that bubbled up when a few people gathered together. Now, don't get me wrong, the different conceptions of God and gods and goddesses and the divine and the sacred are important, and they help us to understand different traditions and peoples and cultures. I did a little bit of thinking and remembering about conceptions of God within world religions as I prepared for this sermon. I thought about Judaism, and particularly the Pentateuch, which are the first 5 books of the Hebrew Bible. The first 5 books of the Torah begins with Genesis. Pentateuch was written over many, many, many hundreds and hundreds of years and is generally understood to have 4 sources within it, woven together in the stories. And you can often tell which source a story comes from by how that source names God. Indeed, by the name itself used, Yahweh or Jehovah or Elohim, each of them coming from different sources and different moments in the life of the people that created the Hebrew Bible. A collection of stories and songs and histories, a collection of a people's experience with the world and with the divine. You can see those different conceptions really easily, actually, in the 2 creation stories that are found in Genesis. A little bit of Hebrew Bible knowledge to drop on you. There are 2 stories, right, that come together at the very beginning of Genesis. One of them has a God so far beyond human understanding, a God that creates the world in 6 days and rests on the 7th, a God out of the cosmos creating the sun and light and warmth and plants. That God is an immanent, a transcendent God. The other creation story has a God who walks and talks with Adam in the garden, a God who appears in conversation and dialogue, who offers judgment based on relationship with the people in the garden, an immanent God, present. These 2 creation stories, both of them part of the Hebrew Bible and therefore the Jewish and then eventually the Christian and Muslim traditions, these 2 creation stories offer different conceptions of God woven together. Christianity holds as one of its most ubiquitous, most common expressions, the Lord's Prayer. Although I didn't grow up with that as part of my tradition as a Unitarian Universalist, I developed a tender space for it when I was in seminary, where it was taught as a prayer to a parent, where it invited a Christian understanding of God as a loving parent. Like any parent, that relationship can be fraught and complex. But for me, the language in the Lord's Prayer points to that understanding of God as parent that we can find within Christianity. Islam has 99 names for God, or Allah. Those names are found mostly in the Quran, but also in outside sources, and each one names a different attribute of God. God the most merciful, God the creator, God the relentlessly forgiving. Muslims might call on a particular name of God in prayer to bring forth the aspect of God of which they are most in need in that moment. Hinduism is, I believe, the polytheistic religious tradition that the majority of Americans might find themselves familiar with, but I suspect that that familiarity only goes so far. Perhaps you knew, perhaps not, that the majority of Hindus actually understand polytheism within a monotheistic framework that is one God with many manifestations, many devas or devis. Within this understanding, the devas and devis are manifestations of the principle of Brahman, the ultimate reality of life, a divinity that is also found within each human as Atman, the eternal self. And Buddhism, complex for sure. There are two major forms of Buddhism, but it is a syncretic religion with as many different versions and articulations as you can imagine around the globe. About a third of Buddhists are essentially non-theistic. That is, questions of God are not a significant part of the practice, if at all. But other forms of Buddhism incorporate ancestor worship and different gods and goddesses, including the Buddha himself. And that is just 5 of the world's religions, just 5 of the ways that that feeling, that impulse, became defined and articulated and expressed. Here at UUCA, we know a little bit about what people believe. In a survey from last winter and spring, with several hundred congregation members responding, the most common responses for belief systems were agnosticism, panentheism, I'm going to tell you what that means, humanism or atheism, Amanda's pet peeve alert, they're not the same, and Eastern contemplative traditions, as well as people who identify as Jewish, Christian, deist, and earth-centered. I think surveys like this can be interesting in part because they give us language for what we are already experiencing. I've had more than one conversation with someone who, on reading the description of a panentheist, said, oh, I think that's me. Panentheism is the idea that there is the world, and God is all the world and a bit beyond. The world contained within the divine. But those labels can also be ultimately distancing, particularly if we imagine that we know exactly what the label or the language means for someone else. Unitarian Universalists, I think, are particularly susceptible to falling prey to the idea that all people from one particular religious tradition believe in the same way, and that we're the only ones that hold real diversity, when in fact, every religious tradition has a diversity of beliefs within it. I tend to be much more interested in the feelings about the divine than the language we use or the articulations of belief or not, as though it is a binary, an on-off switch. I am interested instead in what it feels like when we have what we might name a sacred experience. When we gather together and feel what that sociology professor named all those years ago, a thing happening that is just a little more than what we can see. One of my favorite articulations of this comes from Henry Nelson Wyman, a process theologian, and also a religious naturalist, someone who brought the idea of process theology, which at its core tells us that God is change, God is movement, God changes with us and is changed by us, and rooted it within religious naturalism, the idea of the religious impulse within the natural world. For me, Wyman's description of creative interchange, which he said creates in someone else the awareness of the original experience of the other person, a spark that happens when we connect and see each other as deeply as possible. It's one of the best descriptions of what it feels like when something more appears. I hope that you may find ways to access that feeling, to access a blanket wrapped around you to keep you cozy and safe, or a vista spread out that reminds you that the world is big and you are small, or a shared song that brings our breath into sync, or a spark of connection when we can see another person's truth. This week, I hope you find ways to invite those feelings in, to go beyond the naming or the labels, the language, and instead to open yourself up to the feeling, to give it space and time to settle, to invite in the divine. Because in some unknown way, beyond words and understanding, it is already there. I invite you now to rise in body and in spirit to sing our closing hymn, a piece that comes connected with mantras of the Eastern tradition within Buddhism and beyond. This is hymn number 1031, and we'll sing all three verses.
May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be whole. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be peaceful and at ease. May you be whole.
May we
be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be peaceful and at ease. May we be whole.
Please join me in the words to extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this chalice, but not the light and warmth it represents. These we carry with us, bringing our sparks of love to the world.
Friends, may you find that spark of love whether in a conversation or a song or a vista spread before you. May you find it, and when it comes, may you know you do not need the right words, and open yourself instead to the feeling. Amen.
Same to you.